A minor petrol price hike has come into effect. The price of petrol has gone up by 1 cent a litre, while diesel and paraffin will set you back by 4 more cents. The improved currency exchange rate is credited for the slight increase. Today's increase comes amid public outcry over the high cost of petrol and food. Right, for more on this, we're joined in the studio by AA spokesperson Leighton Bird. Mr. Bird, always a pleasure to see you. Thank you so very much for joining us here on Afro Breakfast.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
All right. Well, as a start, I mean, I had a couple of people asking me, well, what is the point of announcing a 1% increase? Why announce such a low fuel hike? Couldn't Treasury perhaps absorb that 1 cent and pass it on to the next increase, perhaps? Is that a possibility?
Well, no, I think the petrol price, the fuel price is adjusted on a monthly basis on the first Wednesday of every month, as we know. So even though it is a slight increase, it needs to keep track with that. So that 1 cent increase will obviously have to be reflected, and that's the reason why it would be done. It's not possible for the Treasury to absorb it. I mean, it is part of the fiscus, so even though it is a slight increase, it does need to be reflected in the fuel price.
Now, what should, or rather can government actually do to soften the blow? Is it even government's fault, really?
Yeah. Look, I mean, when you look at the fuel price makeup, you see that there are several components that make that up. You've got your basic fuel price, which is the price that we pay on the international market, and then you've got these indirect taxes, the general fuel levy, which is R3.37 of every litre of petrol, and the RAF levy, which is R1.93. And there is a lot of talk that the government can't control the external environment, but it can control those two levies. So, you know, that is one thing that people are saying government must look at.
Yeah.
And then obviously the two factors that influence the fuel price on a monthly basis. The first being international product prices, petroleum prices, and that we have very little control of. The second is the Rand-US dollar exchange rate, and we have very little control over that, except that we need to be creating an environment that is investment friendly in South Africa, that has policy certainty, that speaks to the strength of our economy, you know, and in that sense there is some control over that. We've seen again today, I mean, the Rand started the day on R13.11. It's already currently at around R13.30, R13.35. So that would obviously influence the fuel price going forward. In terms of the fuel levies, there's been a call to scrap them. You know, it may be a solution. The problem is where does government then get that money that it gets through these levies to the fiscus? There's been a call to reduce them. That may be a solution. But I think for us, the bigger issue is not the fuel price. The bigger issue is the economy. Any discussion on the fuel price is, in our opinion, a discussion on the state of our economy.
That's right. And I mean, do you really believe that, you know, you would know that there are these marches planned, pickets, protests, etc.? I mean, really, what will they do towards addressing the issue of fuel prices?
Yeah. Look, I mean, in our opinion, the protests won't yield the results that the protesters want them to yield. I think that where we need to begin and end in this discussion is to have a debate and to find a real solution going forward. You know, it's great to say let's scrap the fuel levies, but we can't just say that without proposing an alternative.
Yeah.
And our opinion is that if we're going to say, you know, let's reduce the fuel levy from and the RAF levy, you know, by 20%, which will bring them down to about R4.24. That we need to have a solution as to where government is going to collect this money. We know that the fuel levies are a very broad-based tax, so they're an easy tax to collect and everybody pays them.
Yes.
And they do contribute a significant amount of money to the fiscus.
Well, I mean, what are the options, do you think?
Well, I mean, you know, I think that's one of the things that we need to look at. And, you know, we would welcome, I mean, suggestions from the public on what the solutions to, you know, funding that shortfall in the fiscus could be. I don't think people want to see an increase in the VAT rate. They don't want to see an increase to personal income tax. You know, these may be alternatives that the government will need to look at if it does scrap or do away with the fuel levies. One of the things that we do say is that when the fuel levies are announced in February every year and the increases are announced, we would like those to certainly be more in line with inflation rather than above inflation, as we have seen in the past number of years. So that for us is a starting point in terms of dealing effectively with the fuel levy issue.
I don't know if you know about this conspiracy theory, and maybe I should just share it with you, and you can tell me if it's nonsense or not. But there is a theory that, you know, the recent increases are due to the fact that government is trying to somehow recover or recoup e-toll revenue by increasing the levy. Is that a possibility at all?
Look, the fuel levies are announced in February. So, they are decided by the Minister of Finance probably in the year before. Whether or not they are used to recover costs for e-tolls, I don't know. I mean, I don't think that that is the case. What we can tell you is that the money that is gathered through the fuel levy, the R3.37 on every litre of petrol, goes directly to the fiscus, and the government can do with that money what it likes. It isn't necessarily transport or road related. It can be used for anything. So if they do decide they want to use it for a specific purpose, then obviously they can do that. I think just in terms of these levies, I think, we said earlier that it is an economic issue. For us, it is also a governance issue. It's an issue of how the money is being spent, what resources are currently being spent, and are they being spent effectively.
Right.
So people would like to know, the consumers would like to know, South African citizens want to know that the money they are paying is being utilized correctly. And I think that that's an issue that needs to be addressed as well. Are we getting bang for our buck? Are we getting value for the money that we spend? And I think that that is definitely an issue that needs to be raised and debated and discussed and clarified.
Mr. Leighton Bird, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your insightful analysis, as always. Automobil Association spokesperson, Mr. Leighton Bird, talking to us about the petrol price increase. We thank you for your time, sir.